The Chiropractic Philanthropist, episode 257.
I think success also leads to failure, and nobody talks about that. What I mean by that is this, is probably the most depressing day in practice for me was the day I saw 1,200 patient visits a week.
Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
My guest today on the Chiropractic Philanthropist is Dr. Alok Trivedi. Dr. Alok is a speaker, consultant, and expert in the field of performance. After building one of the largest healthcare clinics in the world, he went on to become president of the Mental Toughness University. Mental Toughness past clients include Coke, Proctor and Gamble, and Toyota, and he has been featured in every television station from CNN to Good Morning America and even The Today Show. Now, before we get to Dr. Alok, let's go ahead and thank today's sponsor, and that is the Chiropractor's Laptop Lifestyle. Over 200 doctors have taken their message of health and healing and put it online in profitable, downloadable digital products, online memberships, and even doing coaching and mentoring and consulting. Doc, if you are looking for the virtual practice, this is it. Head over to chiropractorslaptoplifestyle.com for more information. Doc, how you doing today?
I'm great, Ed. Thanks for having me on your show, man. I appreciate it.
I'm excited, and I got to tell you, I said that every time I start a podcast, is I say that I'm excited, but I truly am excited because you and I were having this incredible chat, actually a pre-chat, and this is one of those discussions that we keep kind of revisiting back over and over and over again, it seems, on the Chiropractic Philanthropist. But I think that you have a really unique twist on this. So I'm just giving a little hook to listeners today. But before we actually get into that, what I'd like you to do is actually share with our listeners a little bit more about who you are as a person, but also as a chiropractor.
Yeah, sure, Ed. I appreciate it. Yeah. You know, for me as a person, I mean, chiropractic was kind of simple to me, to be honest with you, because, I mean, most people don't realize chiropractic actually came from Vedic philosophy, which I'm of Indian descent. So that just kind of it just made perfect sense. When I read the green books and I got it, and I heard it. It was just like, yes, finally, this all makes sense. So, you know, as a chiropractor, it was very, very simple for me to transition into that healing art. As a person, I love business. I love healing. I love business. I enjoy expanding and expressing myself through different mediums, and it's been an incredible journey. It really has been an incredible journey to be able to do what I've been able to do and continue to do, but serve a lot of people in the process. It's a lot of fun.
And, one of the things that we'd love to start the episodes with also is something that gives us a little bit more also information about like who you are as a person. And that is like a quote or affirmation, something that you would like to drop on doctors today.
Yeah, this is going to sound very arrogant. I'm going to tell you this right off the top. Not going to lie. My favorite quote is my own.
Cool.
And I was a president of Mental Toughness University with Steve Siebold for 2.5 years, spoke on mental toughness for many years, and I saw this one thing common between every person. It drove me insane, is that everyone's always chasing the next type of goal, next type of car, riches, all that stuff. And for me, mental toughness became a very simple thing. Instead of chasing, it was just have the mental toughness to be yourself. Because I think that's so hard in today's world, just to be you.
I couldn't agree more.
And so the quote is really, mental toughness is really about having the strength to be yourself.
And I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I reflect on this often, or I'll post about this on Facebook or social media, is that, especially as chiropractors, and I found this personally as a chiropractor, that the more that I was mentored in a way where I had to follow certain scripts and say certain things so that I could actually be successful in my business, the more I lost the true sense of who I was.
Man, there's so much truth to that. And I'll tell you, our profession is since the beginning, it feels like the beginning of time, we've got everyone becoming robotic. Everyone's looking for the next greatest ad, the next greatest script, the next greatest, ROF out there? Is it a 3-day system, a 4-day system? Man, just be yourself. It's
Mhm.
simple. People are attracted to you. And the more of you you become, yeah, you have to follow business principles and business protocols, but the more you become of yourself, the more you succeed. It's just that simple.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that was kind of the feeling. I always aspired to be my mentor. Like it's like talk like I almost felt like a parrot at times, and it worked to a certain level of success. But then you kind of hit a ceiling where, and possibly an emotional ceiling where you're just like, I'm not happy to be in this other person.
You can't be. That's the thing is, it's like I've done the same thing. I've tried to be other people, and you get this success, or so we deem as success, and then you get to this point where it's like, what do I want, right? And then I don't know about you, Ed, but as I'm getting older, I'm realizing life is not growing. My time is decreasing, so I better become myself fast, or else I won't ever get the chance to be myself. You follow what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a wild thing, and you do this so brilliantly on Facebook. I love your stuff because you're just here. Here's me, like it or leave it, hate it or not. And that's really kind of been my philosophy over the last 5 or 6 years. Here I am, like it, great. It's like we used to say in mental toughness is that I'd like your approval, but I don't need it.
Yeah, yeah, and that brings us actually to an incredible part of this episode is, I like to call it the struggle. As chiropractors, we all experience struggle. As mentors, as leaders, we all experience struggle. I don't think there's anyone who does not experience struggle. That helps us actually. That resistance helps us grow and expand. Was there ever a time that you fell flat on your face, doc, and what you learned from that experience and how you apply it to your life and business today?
No, Ed, I've never failed in my entire life.
Of
I'm
course.
just the epitome of success all the time, let me tell you. Of course, I failed. I failed many times. I failed the first two practices I opened, quote unquote, failed. I failed with patients. I failed in all these different things. But the one thing I always learned that what people perceived as failure was just another stepping stone. And the one thing I don't know, maybe it was my dad who put this belief in myself, but I just keep reinvesting in me,
Hmm.
and it just seems to pay dividends that pull me out of any scenario, any situation. I just look at myself and say, okay, you've got to go do it. And I had when I first opened my first practice, I was with a practice management group that kind of set up offices and things.
Hmm.
And within 3 months, I was doing crazy number of visits, and they basically closed the door on me because of a business deal, and I had a $450,000 lawsuit on me when I was 24 years old. And 24 years old, I'm like, I got 150 grand in education loans, school loans. I got a $450,000 loan, and then I'm about to get married, and my fiance at the time was looking at me like, I don't know if I want to get into this. And I said, well, I don't know if you do either, but this ship's about to sail. I'm going to do this one way or another. You make your choice and make your decision. But honestly, just success, failure is great, but I think success also leads to failure. And nobody talks about that. And
Yes.
what I mean by that is this is probably the most depressing day in practice for me was the day I saw 1,200 patient visits a week. Everyone thinks it's great, it's this glorious thing, but I looked at it and I said, I had set that goal for myself, and what I realized is that what's next?
Hmm.
Is there another? I don't want to see more than 1,200 people a week. It's crazy. I don't want to see that many people. And it really led me into, I almost call it, I'll be honest with you, I almost call it this business depression I went through, where I was like, what do I do now? Where do I go? Where's my next challenge and something like that? And that's kind of what led me to this whole philosophy of being yourself and aligned performance and all.
I couldn't agree with you more on that too. And I speak to more and more chiropractors these days on the phone. Like I get on calls with docs and they express the exact same level of, I don't know if frustration is the right word, but it's like dissatisfaction where they hit that goal and then it's like, when is enough enough? How many practices do I need? How many people do I need to see? And yet what that happens is, and I hear this often, is that their quality of life suffers.
Sure.
I mean, they just, yeah, less time with your family, less time with your spouse. Physically, chiropractors break down, and it's all out of a place of service, service. So, I mean, from that, I mean, you must have learned some incredible lessons, right?
I did. And here's what I'll tell you. The biggest, can I use the word bullshit on your podcast?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, good. The biggest bullshit out there is this service above self thing. Doctors don't realize this. I mean, I went through a brutal divorce, and it was nightmare. It was a nightmare. But the truth is that because we've been taught this idea and this altruistic nonsense that you just serve, you just serve, you just serve. Well, what about me? What about my income? What about my family? What about taking care of yourself? And if you don't do that as a business, then you're lost. I like to say, I like to tell my clients is that your practice is for your patients, but your business is for yourself. Mm-hmm. Don't ever mix the two up. Because as soon as you do, you lose yourself inside of your job and into this profession. And that may have worked, that mentality may have worked in the 70s, 80s, 90s when it was a gravy train, but it's different today. It's a lot harder today than it was back then. And you have to adapt. You have to adapt to it. There's no question.
And I mean, I love this conversation. I really do. But also part of me kind of is sitting here thinking too. And I mean, I'm kind of removed from my practice now as a practicing doc, but I still have to think, I'm like, but if I'm me in my practice, how do I make that actually work as a business? Because the only thing I know is to follow someone else's values, scripts, and, principles. So, I mean, how do you make that transition into authenticity?
Well, I think it's first you got to look at the mirror and say, what do you really want? Right? What do you really want in your life? Like what you've done, right? I mean, you had a great crisis or a blessing, whatever you want to call it, in your definition, and you're allowed to, because of what you do, you influence so many more people besides just seeing patients in your office. And thank you for what you do for the profession, for the service, and for humanity in that capacity. And you should get rewarded for it. I think it's a brilliant thing you're doing. But you've got to look in the mirror and say, who am I? And then ask yourself, okay, what do I want to follow? How do I want to practice? So many chiropractors, I think you put this post on there the other day, is that, all these things and chiropractors can't get their shit together, right?
That's right.
And it's true. And the thing is until we follow everyone else, we won't. One practice, because we're always in that state of survival of the next new patient, of the next report of findings, the next close. And all that stuff leads you to is in this state of survival. Really, to be authentic, you have to ask yourself, what do you really want? How do you really want to serve? I don't care if you're a functional medicine doctor or a TMJ doctor or a subluxation-based chiropractor. Do whatever it is that makes you happy and makes you get up in the morning and go to work. But just follow the business principles that are there and then be successful in your own right. If you want to see 100 people a week, see 100 people a week, but learn the foundations and the business fundamentals to see 100 people a week, make a lot of money, serve your family, and balance your life the way you want it. If you want to see 2,000 people, great, go do that, but understand that there's business principles you have to follow. And what I do is actually that's kind of what I help doctors do, is create that authentic practice. I was taught by a guy who ran a $50 million company that every business comes down to 4 components. And that's marketing, sales, operations, and payments. Because I don't care if it's a Fortune 500 company, but if you follow those principles, marketing, sales, operations, and payments, you can't fail in business. And so that's what I do. I teach doctors marketing, selling, operations, and how to make money. And, I've done something actually for this podcast. I hope you don't mind me sharing this.
Yeah.
Is that, I've actually created a video with giving your listeners the actual framework of a consultation that sells. This is the same consultation that I went out and I learned from all these sales gurus, and I put together a framework and what I used in my practice with my doctors. And they can get this video. It's about a 20-minute video. It's every step inside of the framework. All they have to do is go in and insert their words. not my words, not somebody else's words, their own words that's authentic to them. And they can get that video for free at increasecairosales.com.
Very cool. So we'll make sure that we have that actually in the show notes today as well. So that'll be in the clickable resources for all the listeners. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I mean, anything that we can do to help doctors grow and be more successful. I mean, that's really the theme behind the chiropractic philanthropist. I just want to kind of go off script here and ask you this question though, Doc. I mean, how important do you think it is for chiropractors, business chiropreneurs, business people to be happy in what they're doing? So like they're happy to go actually, and because I know that for most chiropractors, they'll probably all agree that they're in their genius mode when they're working with patients, but they don't enjoy the business part, like of like running the business of a clinic or a practice. But how important is it to be 100% happy in your business, your practice, and not just happy in serving?
Your business is your service. So let me define what I mean by that. I don't believe in the delusion of happiness. I just don't. Because even with patients, let's just call real. You don't love serving every patient. Some patients are a pain in the ass, and they just are. And I can give you the delusion that every patient, they're there, we're just as humanitarian, but some of them are a pain, and you don't want to work with them. And as much as you try to serve them and do everything, not everyone wants to receive your help either. And this took a long time for me to get, Ed, to tell you. And most of your listeners probably know that, but I'm a little bit slow maybe, but it took me a long time to get it. But if you don't have a business, you don't have anyone to serve. I used to get into this discussion all the time with doctors, and I just stopped fighting with them. I was like, okay. And then 6-8 months later, they'd close down. Oh. And it's sad because you've spent $150,000 to be in this profession, yet 64% of the people after 5 years aren't practicing anymore. So they're making their student loan payments in UPS, working at UPS. Yeah. That to me is, we talk about, I just like being real with this stuff. We talk about, serving the masses and getting 9% utilization to 18% utilization. That's all great. And that's a great fantasy that we have. And I love Dr. Reekman, so don't please, I'm not butchering that. Mm-hmm. But unless we have doctors in business taking care of themselves and their family, no one's going to be able to see those 18% that you're educating.
Yeah.
That's just the fact of the matter. So, you have to learn the side of the business. And if not, you have to delegate it to somebody who you trust and can run your business efficiently and learn that side of it. Because if you don't, you're going to end up losing lots of money down the line. And, I know so many elder doctors I've talked to, Ed, that they're 60, 70 years old and they don't have a retirement.
Yep.
It's like, what's the point of the game? Oh, you were altruistic to serve, but now you're screwed and you're living on Social Security. By the time you and I get there, there is no Social Security. I don't mean to be like negative about this. I'm trying to just be real with doctors and saying, hey, wake up. Take care of you so you can take care of others.
Yeah. Yeah. I again, this is something that I hear from doctors often is there is no backup plan. Like if they're out, I mean, it doesn't even have to be the docs who's looking for an exit strategy or ready to retire and they don't have anything put away. But they're those docs who are just like, if something happens to them, and I even did the work on this last night personally, I'm like, if something happened to me today or tomorrow, is my family actually going to be taken care of? So I am always kind of asking that question and making sure that I have a strategy and actually a map in place. And one of the biggest things I've learned too is just simply to be freaking super successful, be happy at what I'm doing and enjoy my life, enjoy every moment of this life that I have. And then just make sure that, those around me who are cared for in case anything ever did happen. And I mean, it all comes back to that one thing, doesn't it? I mean, happiness, it comes back to being successful and being authentic, right? But also, I think the more authentic we are, again, it links into the more successful you can actually be. People pick up on that and they invest in you when you show up as you. Wouldn't you agree?
That's the name of the game. I'll tell you, when I was going through my divorce, it was a very, very difficult time for me. And emotionally, and I'm an Indian, right? So Indian people don't get divorced. It's like You might as well cut your head off and call it a day. And I did. And I went through this divorce, and it was very, very difficult for my family, socially, with my structures. And what I realized was, though, is that I was trying to become somebody else. And the more I became of myself, the quote unquote happier I got, or more joyous I got. But I realized then success started to follow that. And what people perceive as success, for me, it was just about doing what it is I love to do. I used to measure success by money. I don't anymore. I measure success by fulfillment.
Wow.
And for me, fulfillment came the more I just started to be me and okay being me, the more fulfilled I became. And the goal then just became, okay, if this is success, then be 1% more fulfilled and do something you want to do for yourself 1% more every day. And eventually you'll get to the point, hopefully in 100 days or 3 months or 6 months, that you're living a fulfilled life doing what it is you want to do for you. And that's what I do today.
Beautiful.
And I love it.
Beautiful. I love it. And so, this is a perfect transition into actually Back to the Future. So I don't know if you know this, Doc, but we actually have a time machine here at TCP. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put you in the TCP time machine. I'm going to send you back to a younger version of yourself. And this is right after you came out of chiropractic college with all of that debt. And you have all the knowledge and life experience you have today. What advice would you give that younger self?
Prenup.
Invest in Apple. I've heard that one too.
No, in all honesty, what I think I didn't learn it right off the top. I was that chiropractic servant, seeing masses of people and lines out the door, the whole thing, and I loved it. I did. Don't get me wrong, but I realized very early on that business management was almost more important than patient management. And then let me qualify that, because I got doctors flipping over right now. They're losing their heads when I'm saying that. And patient management, look, there's lots of guys who are there telling you about patient management, patient care. And I'm not one of these docs that wants to die on the adjusting table. That's just not me. I never had that vision. And I wanted to build business, not for the purpose of just profit, but I wanted to educate people on building business. I learned that, and I went out, learned it, and got it, and realized that, okay, if you're in business and you're managing your profits, managing your income, your money, all of a sudden more people came to you, better quality patients came to you. And you had the ability to then, in essence, almost, I hate saying it this way, but I don't know what else to say, is owning your life rather than being run by your practice.
Yeah.
And that's a very different feeling than, the holidays are just past here. There are doctors who didn't take a single day off this Christmas and New Year's because they don't understand marketing, selling, business, and they didn't spend time with their families because they had to go to work.
Yeah.
And that's a little, for me, and if you're that doctor and your listeners are sitting there saying, no, well, I wanted to go because I wanted to serve, God bless you. But, I remember first 10 years in business, I wasn't able to be there on many of the holidays, and that kind of got to me after a while.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of chiropractors too can also connect with this. It's always, for me, it's always about more time with my boys. And I shouldn't say more time, but it's more quality time with my boys and with my queen. So my wife, I want to have that time. I want to be able to, if I choose, to take that time out of my business to be with them. And this is a good step forward. I mean, docs can make a change right now. 2017, it's upon us. Is it going to be the same as 2016, or are you going to actually make any changes? And I'm going to give that call to action out for them again too. So they can actually head to the show notes right now, or listeners, you can head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. We're going to have a webpage dedicated to our discussion, also with Dr. Trivedi today. And we're going to have clickable links to the resources he's providing, but also to that opt-in, so you can get that 20-minute video to help you be more authentic in your consultation. And that is increasechirosales.com. But it'll be in the clickable links. Dr. Trivedi, I want to ask you one final question before we wrap up our call today. And that's just simply this, if you could give an invaluable resource, something that you're reading, maybe something that you're listening to, that docs can't live without, what would that be?
I get this question every time I do a seminar. I just spoke to a group of entrepreneurs over the weekend, and fantastic group, and they all ask me the same question. What's the one resource that if you could go back and give to yourself again, or with the invaluable resource? And I'll tell it to you, and it's probably something extremely nonlinear. It's not content, it's fiction. And it's the book called Atlas Shrugged, written by Ayn Rand, I think it was 57 that she wrote it. And that book, not to make it sound like a cliche, but it really did. It changed the course of my life, changed the course of my thinking. Actually, in the world, it's the second most read book than the Bible. Wow. And so many business people, entrepreneurs, have never even heard of it. And I was told about this book by an oil tycoon that I was interviewing one time, much like you do. I met with him face to face, and the guy was probably worth about $100 million at least. And I asked him the same question. He said, Atlas Shrugged, hands down, greatest book ever written, and I can't disagree with him. For my life, it's been huge, huge, huge advice. Don't watch the movies. The movies suck. Read the book. It's 1,300 pages. It's brilliant.
Well, you've inspired me with your practice and life experience today and your leadership. I want to thank you so much for giving back today and being on the Chiropractic Philanthropist podcast.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate what you do. And for all your listeners, I thank you for taking the time to listen to what I had to say.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to the chiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Chiropractic Philanthropist.